What is going on, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in to this really special show. As I told you guys before, this new channel or new show called State of the Game is going to be like a little bit of a mosh pit of me talking about different things, whether it be the Mets, whether it be the Knicks or the Giants. It could be shows where we talk about all of them at the same time, or we could just have one-off special shows where we actually really get into the nitty-gritty of the particular team that we want to cover. And today's show is going to be one of those. We are going to be talking about the New York Football Giants. And I've said before that because people ask me, oh, hey, Ron, you love the Giants. Why you don't cover the Giants or why you don't cover the Mets? And there's reasons for that, guys. One, first off, the Mets, I just don't have enough time. I got a lot of stuff going on. But when it comes to the New York Giants, I always say to myself, I'm never going to need to cover them because when I need Giant info, I've got my man, Chris the Entertainer, and I've got Fireside Giants. They do such a great job that I really don't feel the need, nor do I feel like I can live up to the same level of content that these guys provide. So I just want to, definitely big them up. They deserve their flowers. And I mean, seriously, I really anytime I thought about doing a Giant content, I'm like, nah, I can't do it. These guys are too good. I'd rather watch you guys. So I am joined by one of the best doing it, Mr. Anthony Rivardo from Fireside Giants. So thank you for being here, my guy. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me and for the really kind words. I mean, I don't really even know what to say. I had to follow that up. I really do appreciate it. Listen, I talk Giants because it's fun. Like, I love talking New York Giants, and I'm so blessed to, have the platform that I do and to talk to as many people as I do every day about the Giants. So I really appreciate you having me on and excited to talk some more Giants right now.
Yeah, dude, definitely. Definitely appreciate you being here. So yeah, guys, let's get it going. So I want to start off talking about just so we have a good correlation and expectation of where the Giants were. This storied franchise that has done so much and brought us so much happiness and joy. For Giant fans, I think it's a little different. Now it's tough because we've been through so many years of losing and tough teams and bad offensive lines and just not being able to live up to what we once were. And I think for people looking outside of it, they don't understand that in our minds, being Giant fans for all these years, we still see this as a storied franchise, as a legacy organization. But it's just hard to really feel like that's the case these days. And so part of that is that, first off, the legacy. What is the legacy? I mean, we're talking about George Young, Ernie Accorsi, and Jerry Reese. These are architects of the Giant legacy, and they all did a really good job in their own right. And so when you think about today's team, you look at yesteryear and you say, man, how can we get back to that? It's a really, it's tough to have this type of team and pale in comparison to to what they've built. But I wanted to kind of, get your thoughts on it and also kind of look at it a little closer, because I think that when you think about legacy in the New York Giants, yes, they have done some remarkable things in their time being a football franchise, but maybe it's not as earth-shattering as we might think, because it's come in different waves. First off, for example, George Young did some fantastic things with the New York Giants. He put together fantastic teams that are like, as if you're a New York Giant fan, your father was a Giant fan. These are teams that, everybody knows. These are like legacy teams, the type of players that the New York Giants were blessed with. And because of that, we also know that the New York Giants won 2 Super Bowls under George Young, which is fantastic, right? And then you also know that, after that came Ernie Accorsi, and unfortunately, Ernie Accorsi never got to win a Super Bowl, but we did make a Super Bowl. We lost in the Super Bowl, but we did make it. And then you got Jerry Reese, and we know that under Jerry Reese, the Giants were able to win 2 Super Bowls. It's the Eli Manning years, right? So looking at that and the fact that each regime of general manager has been able to get to the Super Bowl, it puts a lot of pressure on, Sheehan and Dable's relationship to see if they can bring back a culture of winning.
Yeah, it certainly.
Sorry, I think the button was stuck there. Yeah,
totally
that was
fine.
playing before. Yeah. Anyway,
it certainly does put pressure on these guys. I think it also put pressure on Dave Gettleman as well. And when you look back on Gettleman's tenure, fans were rightfully harsh on him. And I think a lot of that had to do with the way that he conducted himself and spoke in the media. And
right.
He was very brash and he was very, overconfident is kind of how I would describe Dave Gettleman.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it all blew back in his face. It misfired. He gets relieved of his duties, as I think how the Giants put it, since they didn't want to officially fire him or they let him retire or whatever. And now with Shane and Dable taking over, obviously some immediate success. Dable's coach of the year. They go to the playoffs. Since then, it's been tough sledding. But I think that it's also important to note over the 101 years of history for the New York Giants, the 4 Super Bowls that they have, like you said, it came in waves. Ernie Accorsi, as you mentioned, didn't win a Super Bowl, but really laid the foundation for Jerry Reese. And when you really look back at George Young, he also had a foundation laid for him in terms of the culture of the New York Giants set by Wellington Mara. And I always think it's interesting to look back now and you look at the team and you look at John Mara and how he's involved and how he's still got a lot of family members involved in the front office. And the Giants really do run it as a family business. There's a lot of guys who've been in that building 20 odd years, even 40 odd years. There's a rich history still within the building. And that leads to criticism in this modern day as to the nepotism word gets thrown around, whether you think it's right or not. Probably in some respects it is. And it also does create a sense of tunnel vision at times for the New York Giants, where I think they like to look backwards rather than forwards. But at times that can be a good thing. And there is a lot of legacy and there is a lot to appreciate. And when you look at how many family members are currently involved in the front office, you do have to look back to the George Young years and a little bit before then and think about how the family business ran sour. And George Young was the one who had to step in and take over the football operations and say, hey, Wellington Mara, you did so much for this organization, not only the organization, but for the league. I mean, the Duke is written on every football, right? But George Young had to step in and say, a new set of eyes needs to take over. Let me take over and let's see what I can build. And he does go ahead and build that. And of course, he builds Super Bowl contender and champion in the New York Giants. And now I think it's always interesting to look back on those periods for the Giants and now put it into perspective in this modern day. Does someone need to step in and do that once again? Does there need to be a president of football operations? Should John Mara take a back seat? But I also think it's so easy to focus on the negatives and the mistakes that Mara's made. And it's also, you could do that for Gettleman and you could do it for Shane. But it's a very tough job to be an owner of an NFL team. It's a very tough job to be a general manager of an NFL team. And by no means am I excusing any of these guys, but it really only takes a couple of right moves to get all of the wrong moves out of the door. And I do think the Giants have gotten pretty close in recent years. Like even thinking back to Gettleman's tenure, he made a lot of mistakes for sure, but he did draft Andrew Thomas, who went on to be a second-team All-Pro. He did draft Dexter Lawrence, who's the best defensive tackle and one of the best players in all of football. So even in all of those misses, there are some hits. And I do think that the Giants are a hit or two away from getting back to winning football. And I do think that both of those hits might have come in this 2025 NFL draft. So I know we're going to talk more about the future and about Dable and Shane later in the show, so I don't want to get too much into that. But I think that it's always fun reflecting on legacy. I don't get to do that too often on Fireside Giants, really, because we're always talking about the current news. But taking a look back at the legacy and thinking over the past, several years of the franchise, it's been a rocky road, but the Giants fans of a long time, and I know we have a lot of longtime viewers on Fireside Giants who've been watching the game since the 50s, they've had these rocky roads before. And I think part of being a New Yorker, part of being a New York Giant is persevering through all that and knowing that there is light at the end of that tunnel.
Right. No, I totally agree with you, man. I think it's one of those things where we just it's what brings us into our love for sports and our love for the New York Giants is just, I felt really blessed as a young person. Just, hey man, I like the New York Giants for whatever reason. You're a kid. You're like, what's my team? Oh, New York Giants. Okay. And then you start to find out, hey, my team is pretty damn good. When I started watching this was in like mid 85, 86. I started watching right when they won. So I'm like, hey, this is fantastic. And to find out that they're a storied franchise that goes along the lines of the Pittsburgh Steelers and stuff like that, you feel really good about the product. And I agreed. Like it's been a long haul. It's a tough sled to get somewhere semblance of back to that type of winning and legacy. But I think they've, nothing happens overnight. And I think you made some really good points about what Gettleman has done. Like it takes a village and it takes time, so little bits and pieces of what helps you bring a good product to the table. And that's, I think the Giants are getting closer. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. But definitely I think that, it's going in the right direction. So I agree with you on that. So yeah, I mean, these guys, they did a great job. They laid the blueprint of what a legacy can be. But I also want to say, just for those who may say, how can Dable and Sheehan live up to this later when we talk a little bit more about them? George Young is obviously, very impressive with what he's done. That under his regime, the New York Giants were 155 and 139. Which, that's a lot of years of football there, but, very good teams that he was able to put together. Ernie Accorsi, the Giants were 73 and 71. And then Jerry Reese, the Giants were 91 and 85. So, it's very good. There's some really great things that happen during these times, but, couple moves here, a couple good players that hit, things can definitely turn around for these New York Football Giants. And so it's not unobtainable. That's what I want to say.
I do agree with you. Again, like I said, I think the Giants are a couple of moves away like they were in the early 2000s. They just needed to get that franchise quarterback in and get him a receiver. Then a couple of years later, they got Eli, they got Burris, and, then they built a Super Bowl winning roster. And I think that it's always, reflecting more on the past of the Giants. It's always frustrating, but also fun to think back on that Eli Manning time period where you go 2007, 2008, they win the Super Bowl. And then that 2008 season, obviously, they were on track to win the Super Bowl. They were the best team in football. And Burris obviously has his accident and derails everything. But they end up making it back and winning a Super Bowl 4 years after they won the previous one. And a 4-year span with a playoff appearance in between, right? And then you think about how they just missed the playoffs the following year. After the Super Bowl 46, I think they had a 10-7 record. Somehow that's the year where that doesn't get you into the playoffs. But there were so many little moments there where the Giants were really close to a dynasty, 2 championships in 4 years. If they made it to another conference championship or 2 in that span, they easily should have the Burris year. And then again, if they would have made the playoffs the following year with Eli and the way that he was in 2011-12, if you get him into the playoffs in 2012, 2013, who knows? Maybe he goes on another magical run. They were really close. So, and again, it's a game of inches and it's also a game of individual moments, and those add up. And I just always think it's frustrating to look back on that time. It's the glory days for me because that was when I was, really growing up a Giants fan, got to see 2 Super Bowls, but the Giants were really close to being something even more special than what they totally are. And I always think it's kind of fun to do the what ifs in that time period as well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. They could have been so much better. Oh man, but it's okay. Listen, as being a Met fan and watching a great team get broken up because of their own off the field extracurricular activities, it's a lot of what ifs in my life. So, all right. But that brings us to, the new look offense of the New York Giants. There's going to be a lot of question marks surrounding the offense and what we're actually going to see. Oops, sorry. I guess there's that. I switched the order. Yeah, so it's the new look offense. We got a new quarterback, and it's an expanded offense. But is it enough, right? And when I say that, obviously we know that we got tons of new quarterbacks now. We've got a rookie and we've got 2 veterans who are all. It's going to be very interesting because you got the going back and forth. Russell Wilson is the guy with the keys right now, but I'm surprised. A lot of people are saying they don't think Russell Wilson is going to be the quarterback for the whole season. Some are predicting a lot sooner a switch to our young rookie than you might normally expect. But I want to ask you, Anthony, with the different moves that they've have made, because I don't feel like there's that big of a change in what the personnel is from last year, but I do feel like Dable has a more of a willingness to open up the playbook and expand on things when he knows he has these different arms available that, maybe certain chances he couldn't take before. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the Giants really didn't do a whole lot to upgrade the offense outside of the quarterback position, but that was the most crucial step that they needed to take. And the way that I look at it is Russell Wilson, he's an average quarterback. Let's call him that at this stage in his career. I mean, he'll have games where he's above average, sure. I mean, he's still an elite deep passer, but let's just call him about a league average quarterback. To go from league worst quarterback play to average is just a monumental difference. I mean, you're talking about all of the issues that you can't even see as a casual fan, let's say, where you don't really know what it looks like when a quarterback forgets to call a protection or forgets to slide the line of scrimmage one way or another, or identify the Mike linebacker. But those are the things that a bad quarterback room makes that mistake all the time. But an experienced average quarterback like Russell Wilson doesn't make those mistakes. And so overall, you've got a smoother sailing ship. And my favorite example to always bring up is how many times last season, particularly in that home Dallas game, did Daniel Jones underthrow short passes? And I bring that up and I'll get to the point, but like think about when Wan'Dale Robinson would catch the ball 2 yards in front of the line of scrimmage and then immediately get tackled. But it wasn't Wan'Dale's fault. He was open. He had 5 yards of space, but the ball either came in late or it was inaccurate. And so he wasn't able to catch it in stride and turn upfield. And as a result, he's immediately tackled. And that's the result of poor quarterback play. And what that does for you, let's imagine that's on 2nd and 10. Okay, now we gain 2 yards, it's 3rd and 8. But what if the ball came out a tick earlier? What if it was more accurate? And Wan'Dale Robinson, rather than getting tackled immediately, was able to turn upfield and pick up 6 to 8 yards. Now, instead of 3rd and 8, it's 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 2. And that's a completely different playbook. So you mentioned opening up the playbook for Dable. It's going to open up because they're going to have more advantageous positions and they're not always going to be playing in these 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and long situations because they've got a quarterback who is good enough to get the ball out on time and accurate enough to give these receivers a chance to at least add a couple yards after the catch, whereas that wasn't an opportunity afforded to them this past season with that quarterback room. And that's going to change everything for this offense. And I think that's really the difference maker for me because, again, they didn't really change a whole lot, but you're talking about all those plays where Wan'Dale was tackled immediately or only gained 2 yards after the catch when he should have gained 4 to 6. He ended up with 699 yards. He really should have had like 800 or maybe even 900 yards. And that's only Wan'Dale Robinson that I mentioned. I'm not even mentioning Darius Slayton, and he had the same issue. And we saw Malik Neighbors finally get hit a couple times in stride versus the Colts. He took them to the house, immediate touchdowns. That should have been happening all year long, but it wasn't because of poor quarterback play. So people think of poor quarterback play, they think of interceptions, they think of not being able to hit the deep ball, and those are problems too. But really, the little minutia of playing quarterback, getting the ball out on time, reading the defenses, and making sure these receivers catch it in stride, I think is the most important thing. That's going to transform the offense. So we should see an upgrade at all of these different positions, at all of these receiver spots. Wan'Dale should be a better player. Slayton should be a better player. And Malik Neighbors should be an even better player, believe it or not, considering how good he was last year, just because of the quarterback upgrade. So they didn't need to upgrade the whole offense. They just need to get that one position right. In my opinion, by at least making it league average, they absolutely got it right. And I'm really excited for the future of this offense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I think also, another thing that's very important is, obviously it's always the Giants offensive line, but, listen, this is another year of the core of these guys being together and being able to go out there and continue to work on the chemistry that they have. Because I think, there was definitely times throughout last season we saw the offensive line look really good. They had some really good moments. Unfortunately, Andrew Thomas going down with his injury was a big blow. And obviously, we started to run into issues with injuries throughout the offensive line, which is going to happen. Giants have been hit with the offensive line bug for many years. So I'm hoping this might be one of the years that they can stay fairly healthy, which would be great. And, also the move of switching Neal, I think will be, I think it's going to work out. What's your thoughts on the Evan Neal switch?
I like the switch. I think moving him from the right side of the line to the left side of the line makes sense. A lot of Giants fans immediately were like, why at left guard? We have an established starter there with John Runyon, right guard Greg Van Roten, and that's the opportunity for him to battle. And I think fans need to realize the Giants do not want him rushing onto the field. They don't want Greg Van Roten to go down and then all of a sudden Evan Neal is out there again, or Greg Van Roten plays poorly and everybody's calling for Evan Neal. They want him to be a backup. They want him to develop behind the scenes, and they want him to be where he's most comfortable. And when you look at his career history, minus what he's done in the NFL at right tackle so far, in his collegiate career, he started out at left guard. He then flipped to the right side line and then back at left tackle. The Giants drafted him in the top 10 following a left tackle performance season that made him one of the best offensive linemen in the entire country. So clearly throughout his football playing career, the majority of it before the NFL was spent on the left side of the line, and he was better on the left side of the line and more comfortable on the left side of the line. So moving him to left guard rather than right guard makes sense, because it's not about getting him on the field as soon as possible. It's about making him the best player that he possibly can be. And to be completely frank about it, the Giants were playing him out of position for the last 3 years. That's the reason why he wasn't able to make any progress. And they do that a lot. Like when they put Cordell Flott in the slot, but his entire collegiate career, he was an outside cornerback. They do this all the time. They always make these mistakes. They think that these players can translate their game into a new position, and they simply can't. So I do think that this will have a return to form, hopefully, for Evan Neal, but I don't know what that form really looks like. I don't think he becomes a starter this season with the Giants. I think he probably has some kind of success following the season with a new team, but I won't deny there is a path for him to get on the field this year. If Runyon gets hurt or if Van Roten gets hurt, Runyon's got the ability to flip to the right side. He probably would. And then I think Evan Neal can get in there at left guard. But I'm hoping that they don't make the mistake of moving back to the right sideline, have him specialize on left guard, focus that position, and hopefully he can develop into at least something tangible. As even a backup would be a success at this point.
Right. No, I agree with that. Yeah, I just, I want to see the Giants be able to salvage this young man, because I mean, to come into the league with such a skill set, the athleticism, and for all of that to be, I don't want to say wasted, but just not fulfilled, would be a shame. So if they can really kind of get something and prolong his NFL career as a New York Giant, that'd be great. Just hoping for the best. We'll see. But I hear exactly what you're saying, and I agree with that too. And he's got a lot to account for. It's show and prove time for Evan Neal.
It definitely is. I think it's a do or die season. It's the final year of his contract, and considering how poorly he's played over the last few years. But what I will say, like we always talk about how bad Evan Neal has been, and he definitely has been bad. His play definitely improved last year. I think down the stretch, he had a really good performance against the Panthers in Germany, and there were a few games towards the end of the year that he was playing some decent reps at right tackle. So I don't know. Maybe there is hope for him. Maybe he can turn it around. Maybe the position changes too early or too late. I don't know. But there's definitely a path for him to become a successful player. I'm just hoping that it actually does happen for him.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for being here and watching. Everybody that's tuned in, please smash that like button for the show. And once again, we are here with Anthony Rivardo of Fireside Giants. I'm sure you guys are familiar. If you're Giant fans, you know all about Fireside Giants. They have put out great content. I've been following them for years. And also congratulations to them. They just hit 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. So that's fantastic, man. Great job. And well worth it, man. You guys, fantastic.
Really do appreciate it, and appreciate everybody who does tune in. I mean, hitting 25K is like unbelievable. When we first started doing this many years ago, I had no idea that was anything in the cards or a possibility. But now that we're here, I mean, it's truly an honor, and very humbled by it, and very excited because we're planning something special for a 25K subscriber special video. And I don't really know all the details of that yet, so I won't speak on it, but definitely stay tuned. That's gonna be fun.
That's dope. That's great. And it's funny because when I look at you and Alex, all right, how you guys basically started this together, and I kind of look at your situation, and it reminds me of me and my co-host John, because we started Still Knicks Fans together, and John has a lot of other things going on. He's got a son that's into all types of AAU sports, so he's a traveling dad and always doing things. So I'm usually the one fitting the full brunt of a lot of the content, and I see that with everything going on with Alex. I remember when he got married. Like I've been following you guys for a minute, so like watching you take the big brunt of everything and really kind of continue to grow the channel. And he comes back in. It's same thing with me and John, and like John's back in now. Like I have to. It's just a great parallel to watch the two sides. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, that is cool, and I love Alex, man. We've been doing this for a very long time, and anytime he needs to take time away for whatever, I'm always happy to just keep talking Giants with the fans while he goes and handles his business, and I know he would do the same for me. So, great co-host, couldn't ask for a better one.
Yeah, you guys, like I said, great content, and I'm really happy for all of the success and continued success. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Please smash that like button. And please, if you haven't subscribed to Fireside Giants, please do. I will put the link in the chat for you guys so you know exactly where to go. Hit that link and subscribe over there if you haven't already. Shout out to everybody. Appreciate you. And also shout out to my guy who's here. I see you. I am Jarrell, who's the host of Die Hard Giants. Appreciate you for being here and checking everything out, man. Always good to see you, brother. All right. So now this is my favorite part of the New York Giants and what we got going on. I'm really excited about this part. And that is here we go. I put everything out of order. That's the defense. Explosive front line and empowered secondary. Now, what I mean by that is there are some question marks in the secondary, which we're already aware of. We've got some returning players that have tons of ability that may take that next step this year, and I think they will. I say empowered secondary because I expect the Giants front line to be phenomenal. I really do think this is the year that everybody has what's the best word for this? I don't want to say a safety net. I feel like everybody has somebody backing them. So if I don't have it at this particular moment, there is so many different weapons on this Giant front line that I think this is going to be a nightmare for teams. Once they get going, couple games, get everything under there, I think this Giant front line could definitely resemble the days of Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, and Justin Tuck. And I think what that's going to do is it's going to allow the secondary to start gambling and taking different chances that they may not have been able to do before because you didn't have such a dynamic front line. What's your thoughts on that, Anthony?
Yeah, I think the pass rush is the secondary's best friend for sure. And I think that the Giants having so many dogs up front, I mean, there's so many different ways you can get creative. Abdul Carter's got the ability to play inside, outside, and even off-ball linebacker as he did at Penn State. And so he's going to be a true weapon for the Giants defense. And it's really going to open things up for guys like Burns. It's going to open things up, especially for Thibodeau. And like you said, there's always somebody backing somebody in this defense. Chauncey Golston, not a bad signing for the Giants. He had a career high, I think 6.5 sacks last season with the Dallas Cowboys. He's a pretty decent pass rusher in his own right. And he can go inside and outside, a very valuable depth piece for the Giants defense. I really like that signing and think not enough people have talked about that one. And even Micah McFadden can get in there and make some plays as a pass rusher every now and then. I really like this linebacker core with McFadden and Okereke. I think that's the one position that could probably use a little bit more depth behind those two guys. But Giants seem to always find some seventh round linebacker every year who contributes really well during the preseason. So maybe they'll hit on another one of those. But yeah, I mean, just having so many capable pieces up front, it's going to keep offenses guessing, and it's going to create zero excuses for the defensive coordinator now. I think that Shane Bowen had a good amount to work with on the defensive line last year. They were leading the league in sacks for a time, and Dexter Lawrence got injured, and things kind of fell apart for them. Staying healthy is going to be a key priority, but with so many good players, not only in the starting unit, but also with some depth pieces, really no excuses. Shane Bowen's got to put together a good defense. I think there's no way that this isn't top 10, and if it isn't, we got to point fingers at somebody. It's probably going to end up being the defensive coordinator that really underwhelmed us last season as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, real quickly before we move on to the Dable and Sheehan and expectations, maybe. What's your thoughts on Shane Bowen? I mean, because I realize that when I talk about and he's the one part of the Giant coaching staff that a lot of people, I guess, I don't know if that's true, but when I talk to people in passing, it's still like, I don't know much about this Shane Bowen person. I mean, I do know he came from Tennessee, and I know Tennessee had moments where they had a really good defense dynamic, but a lot of people want to give credit to the head coach for that as well. So what's your thoughts on Shane Bowen? Do you think that he's the type of guy that can really, get the best out of this new Giant defense?
I think the jury's very much still out. Obviously, like you said, coming from Tennessee, Bowen did lead some really solid defenses while he was there, but Mike Vrabel received much of the credit. And I think the problem with fans and their perception of Shane Bowen is the perception is that he was the backup plan to the backup plan for the Giants because they interviewed so many coordinators and it seemed like they had their heart set on this guy, and then that guy went and took a different job. Then they had their heart set on this guy, and that guy went and took a different job. And then they eventually settled on Shane Bowen. So I think there was just never much excitement surrounding him. And there was just an overwhelming feeling of disappointment when that was the hiring that the Giants made. And so I think that that's kind of carried over him. And I don't think Giants fans have probably been open-minded enough to Shane Bowen. But when you look at what he was dealing with last year, there were a lot of injuries on the defense. The secondary really didn't have a lot of proven talent last year after McKinney walked. And obviously with the secondary being led by, or the cornerback room being led by Deonte Banks, and he really struggled. I think that there are reasons to believe that Bowen can put it together this year with that defensive line because it feels kind of idiot proof. Like, how do you not figure out how to put a good defense on the field with that defensive line? But again, we might run into the same problem with this cornerback room where I really like the signing of Paulson Adebo. He projects well to become a CB1, but he isn't a CB1. He hasn't been at any point in his career. He was a CB2 for the New Orleans Saints. He had a few weeks where he elevated into that primary number one role, and then he broke his leg. And so I think there's still a lot of question marks in that cornerback room. Banks going into year 3, is he going to take the step forward? We expect he will. It's a reduced role for him, right? So hopefully he's better, but will he be? Who knows? I think the Giants are going to ask their defensive line to do all of the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. And if they have a couple injuries up front, I think that they could run into some question marks and some uncertainty once again in this defense. The thing about Bowen, though, before I, wrap here, I think his scheme is really misunderstood by people. Mm-hmm. They think that he's still running a lot of man coverage, and or they think that he's running more zone coverage, rather. People think that he's running a lot more zone coverage than Wink Martindale did, and that's true. But he's still running above average man coverage rates, and I think that's really what hurt the Giants last year. They were trying to have this transition from Martindale to Bowen, and they kind of played it halfway, where they played more man coverage than I think they probably should have. And so that's why you would see Deonte Banks running with his back to the football, and then it comes right over his head, and boom, it's caught by Amari Cooper. And he couldn't get his head turned around. That happens when you're in man coverage more often than when you're in zone coverage. But Bowen likes to play more zone coverage. At least he did when he was in Tennessee under Mike Vrabel. And so I think last year was a little bit of a transition period for the Giants where they didn't have the pass rushing personnel that they necessarily needed all season, and the secondary was too inexperienced. And because the secondary was so used to playing under Martindale, it was a very difficult transition. But ultimately, I think it was a transition year. I think this year, you see a more dynamic pass rush up front, and you see a little bit more zone coverage to make it easier on guys like Deonte Banks, where they're reacting rather than running. And I think ultimately we'll get a much better product on the defensive side of the ball this year. So hopefully I'm right about that. And, hopefully Shane Bowen is able to figure it out because there's a lot of good pieces here.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. I think that there's nothing wrong with a different look, a different style of defense, and giving somebody that is not necessarily what you would call the quote unquote big name an opportunity to show what they can do. And with this many weapons on defense, I mean, he definitely got to feel confident about what he could bring to the table this year for the New York Football Giants. So I'm hoping it all translates to a lot of success for the team. And so that brings us to the final topic, and that's just Dable, Brian Dable, and Joe Sheehan. And can the Giants return to a top NFL franchise? Now, obviously, this is not you guys know this is not something that's going to happen this year. It's going to take a little while, but each year is a new year and a stepping stone to a better football product. And so I don't know. I mean, I think that this is the Giants are such an interesting team with the things that they've done. They could easily have another losing season, but make some really good strides. Or I could see them being a 9-7 team. And then again, you never know. They might catch lightning in a bottle and really turn into like the old, really tough grinded out defensive teams, a la the Baltimore Ravens type team that won a Super Bowl without having much of an offense, but really based everything on defense. So you just never know. What's your thoughts on Dable and Sheen being able to, get this team back to its previous winning ways and creating a level of consistency?
I definitely think there's a path there, and the path starts at the quarterback position. And that's where I will praise the Giants. I'll praise Joe Shane for what he did this offseason to stabilize that quarterback room. I think Russell Wilson brings a tremendous amount of stability. I think that Jameis Winston brings insurance to that stability. I think Jackson Dart gives them potential for the future. And that's what every quarterback room should have. It should have those three things. It should have stability, insurance, and potential. And now the Giants finally have that. They didn't have that last year, and it was a complete misfire. They're banking on Dable being able to coach up Jones and will hit the team back into the playoffs like he did in 2022, and it just didn't work out. But now they're hedging their bets and they're making the proper moves to give them competency at the most important position in the sport. Honestly, I mean, if you have been tuned in and you said that you have, you know that I was calling for heads at the end of last season. I wanted them to fire everybody. And I think rightfully so. They went on a 10-game losing streak in the 100th season. They went 3-14. It was tied for the worst record in football. That was on paper, the right move was to fire everybody. But they said, okay, we're going to keep continuity. We're going to give them one more chance. And I have to say, I really don't have anything negative to say about Joe Shane this entire offseason. I only have praise for him. I think he did an excellent job. I think he learned from a lot of his mistakes. And it's very clear and obvious that he did have a plan going into this offseason that he presented to ownership that convinced them of keeping him around. And it was a convincing plan. He really put it in action. I think the Giants did a tremendous job this year. Now, can that result in a playoff season? Possibly, most likely not. But you also have to keep in mind this roster has some similarities and comparisons that you can make to that 2022 roster, which Brian Dable found a way to get into the playoffs and win a playoff game with. So I like Dable. When I was calling for heads, it was mainly calling for Shane. And if you're going to fire the GM, I don't think you should thrust the head coach on somebody. But I do like Brian Dable. And I think that 2022 season wasn't a fluke. And I think they can return back to that form. And I think it's also, final point, got to keep in mind, they were both rookies, right? Rookie head coach, rookie GM. They have been kind of going through their growing pains and learning through this. What we need to see is that they learn from their mistakes year in and year out. And I definitely think this offseason in particular, we've seen a lot of that with the Giants correcting at the quarterback position, correcting at the safety position, learning from those mistakes in the roster building. And even so far, OTAs and the spring training that the Giants did, Brian Dable changing the practice regimen to better match up with what Russell Wilson likes. They're doing more 7-on-7 drills. So a lot of learning from mistakes. I think that's what's really important to see. And so far we're seeing it entering 2025. And that's what's giving me some hope that this actually could be a better year than a lot of fans expect.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. No, I can say I like the fact that they are changing things up and listen, Dable and Sheehan are both on the hot seat. They definitely they've got a lot to prove as well. I like both of them. I don't know why I like both of them. Now, I mean, just seriously, because the Giants haven't been the greatest. Like, let's be honest. But we do know that there's been holes that they've had to fill, and you can't, with so many different things that the Giants had to address as far as personnel goes. You can't do all that in 1 year, maybe not even 2 years. And as we can see, maybe not even 3 years. Like it took us so much effort and smart drafting, but also making some mistakes too, because not every pick that has been made has worked out perfectly. But I do think that they've hit on more as far as having consistent, solid football players than not. And I think now we're hoping that they really hit this past year, because they got so much, interesting young talent, like fiery guys, athletic guys, specialists in the fact that you don't see guys that can do things in these ways. Like, you're lucky if you get one of these guys, which we know we might have one on the defensive line now or / linebacker. Well, we'll see. I can't wait to see what Carter does. But, shout out to my guy, I Am Jarrell, who says, with the talent on the side of the ball, this should be a top 10 defense. If the offense can be at least average, the defense should be top 5. Go Giants. Hey, man, I don't think it's far-fetched. I think if they have a great if they have a good defensive scheme and guys execute the way they need to, I agree that with the type of talent we have and going back to that whole thing of all of these guys having somebody that can turn it on, like this could be really special. So I just want to get, your final expectations for what you think this season could turn out to be. Are you thinking a 500 team or a little better than 500? How do you see the Giants going forward?
Well, before I do give the final expectations, I'll just say I like some of the things you said there. And I like when you mentioned you just kind of like these guys and you're not exactly sure why. I'll tell you the reason why, and it's personality. The Giants have personality now, and that's something that they were missing for a long time. Dable has a great personality. He is a likable guy. I mean, he's fiery and, he gets amped up. Joe Shane as well. I mean, his personality rubs me the wrong way sometimes, but he does have personality, and I think we can appreciate that. Especially, let's look at comparison's sake. Dave Gettleman's personality was brash, like I said, and he was very unlikable. Pat Shurmur was boring. He didn't have a personality. Nobody liked him because of that. And that's actually like part of the reason he got fired, because he didn't handle the media well, because he was so boring. Joe Judge was very brash and unlikable to a lot of people. Personality is really important. The Giants have the right personalities now in the front office and in the coaching staff as well. And also with the personnel. Now they've got legitimate personality with the quarterback room, of course, with Russell Wilson. He's always been a great personality. And Jackson Dart has a lot of personality as a young player with a lot of potential and, as the kids say, aura and swagger, whatever. That's Jackson Dart. And you compare that to Daniel Jones, who had no personality whatsoever and was basically a wooden plank sitting at the podium every week. So personality is the difference maker. And that's where I think this Giants team is finally starting to get it right. And I think that they took the wrong lessons from the Eli Manning era, where he was very well-spoken. He was very cordial with the media. And they didn't realize that fans weren't attached to that, but they were attached, first of all, to the winning, but also to the personality that he had when he would be at Steiner Sports signing autographs. And he was super friendly and making jokes. And he was pulling pranks in the locker room. The personality is what was missing from the Giants for the last several years. And I think they have that back. And I think the rest of it will fall into place now after that. So in terms of my final expectations, though, I think this is a 7-win team. I know that's over the Vegas line of 5.5, and I know it's over the expectations of probably a lot of Giants fans. The more optimistic fans probably think we're winning 10 games and going to the playoffs and making a miracle run. I could say I don't think that that's going to happen, but I will never rule it out with this team. But I do think that this roster is good enough to win about 7 games this year, call it a bridge year, and then turn loose with Jackson Dart in 2026. And hopefully with a couple more pieces around him, this roster will be really solid. Maybe we can have some immediate success with him on their center. But I do agree with Jarrell's statement. If this is a top 10 defense and an average offense, this team should definitely be competitive. And I think competition is really all we're looking for as Giants fans going into this year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, man. I think that, there's a lot to be optimistic about. Not everybody is a full New York fan, but there's a few of us out here. I'm a Met fan, a Giant fan, a Knicks fan. And so it's not easy. It's not easy when you're a New Yorker and you love New York sports. But I think there's something I'm really, like, I haven't been this excited for a New York Giant football season in a little while. I'll be honest. The last couple years I've been kind of so. Even the year that we drafted Daniel Jones, I was still kind of like so. Not because of him, but just the team in general. This year is probably the first year in a while I'm actually really excited. At some point I feel like a team has to turn the corner. I feel like this is the year. I'm not saying anything out there, guys. I'm not saying Super Bowl, stuff like that. I'm just saying when a team can turn the corner and really start moving in the right direction where it's building. So next year might, even better, and so on and so forth. But once again, I just want to say shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for being here. Please smash that like button. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in on YouTube, as well as those who are on X right now. Shout out to the replay gang, because I know y'all gonna get this when y'all get it. This is a great show, fantastic content, and great conversation with Mr. Anthony Rivardo, Fireside Giants. Thank you once again for being here, my guy. And then when's the next time that people can find you guys?
Well, I really appreciate you having me. You can find me at Fireside Giants over on YouTube. We post pretty much daily there. I've got an episode already planned for tomorrow, so you can catch me on Fireside Giants as early as tomorrow. So, and I'll be live on Bleacher Report on Friday as well. So stay tuned to my my Twitter at Anthony_Rivardo /X. You can find me over there and keep in touch with me there too. But yeah, man, thanks so much for having me. This was a really fun conversation. Really like that we got to look back on the Giants and look forward. This was really fun. So thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here, and definitely would love to chop it up with you in the future, see how this season goes. And also, I think I didn't have a chance. I saw it recently. I didn't have a chance to grab a screenshot of it and put it up for everybody. But I think you got an event coming up later in the year.
Yeah, thanks so much for mentioning that. Bezara Music Festival it's actually an inaugural festival. It's the first they've ever done. It's happening opening weekend of the NFL over in New Jersey in Keensburg or Keens Beach, I think it is. But it's essentially a 2-day music festival, and I'll be there, not performing any music. Nobody wants to hear me sing. I can promise you that. But I'll be doing a booth, basically Fireside Giants Live with Chris the Entertainer. We'll be there talking some Giants for a couple of days. And on the second day, we'll actually be doing a private watch party. Or actually not private. I'm pretty sure anybody can go to the restaurant. But we'll be at a restaurant watching the Giants game, hopefully with fellow Giants fans. So hopefully everybody can make it out. You can go check that out. I've definitely posted about it on Twitter. So go find the link there. And really looking forward to that event. It should be a lot of fun. So hopefully people make their way out there and come watch a Giants game with me. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's dope. Well, yeah, man, listen, guys, check out Fireside Giants if you haven't already. I'm not going to steer you wrong. You know, every time I say I'm not going to steer you wrong, you know, I'm hitting you with the fire. You know, it's something you got to check out. They do a great job. Fantastic. You don't really need to look for many answers because they like he says, they do post almost daily. And it's a lot of information, especially for us in busy lives and so much going on. I know me dealing with the Knicks, I just don't have enough time to catch everything New York Giant. So you guys are like my cheat sheet. So I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you once again, and appreciate you guys. Please go support Fireside Giants. Look for that event. You know, check out Fireside Giants on X, and you can see the information about it where it's posted. And let me tell you something. Anytime that these guys from Fireside Giants, Anthony or Alex, whoever, get together with Chris the Entertainer, it's a fun time. Believe me when I tell you that. Chris is a great guy. So yeah, definitely enjoy that event. I wish I could go, but I don't go anywhere anymore. But anyway, that's life. So once again, take care of yourselves, guys. Thank you for tuning into the show. Please smash that like button. Catch the replay if you missed it in its entirety, and go support Fireside Giants. And let's go, New York Football Giants. This might be a really fun year. I'm excited. You should be excited as well. We're out of here. Take care.